February 3rd, 2022. It's really interesting on this piece of journalism that they put up here. This piece is on the U.S. Postal Service. Now, they show like a bench of women out, I'm assuming in the Midwest somewhere where war has never hit. They might have sent people off to war, but they are not on what I would consider a modern, for 2022 standards, it looks like the beaches of Normandy, or what they portrayed the beaches of Normandy to look like on the Northeast coast in the year 2022. I mean, like, that's like my reference for whatever is going on in New York that they may not see on a day-to-day basis. Now, the United States Postal Service, I have such historic fondness and nostalgia for the way it was created and the way it was to remain. Where my problem is in my physicality, where I walk out the front door and I look around Bayside Station, I see multiple nations of people, non-familial, delivering and taking space up inside of the United States Post Office, driving the trucks, pushing the carts, and making deliveries. Some of them are of questionable routes, I would say, but I don't know if DOT is actively pulling over U.S. Post Office trucks to see if they're integritous or if they're counterfeit. It just feels like there's clones of things in this proximity to a major metropolitan city that is not being run or funded correctly, because the message seems to be always of some message that does not seem hometown friendly. So now, of course, in my life frame, there's been a drift from the post office of when it was established and why it was established for a service member, perhaps to have a home community. They meet the at-home neighbors and things when their families were actually allowed to raise their own children, and it was like a nice place to live. Not that that exists anymore in New York, downstate where I am. I really don't know any moms that were actually had husbands or fathers that were able to pay for them to stay home as housewives. Most moms had to work. So there's less participation with the post office in just that, leaving room for dangerous employee changes that go unnoticed or unreported, or, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to report that kind of thing to. And then there's the, I mean, like, it's the changing of the guard, but like in the most insidious and hidden places. I can see it with my own eyes. There is one post office worker that looks like he and I could be on some family line at some point, no matter how distant, he and I might somehow be related. But he's the only one that I really see in this neighborhood. The majority of what's driving the U.S. Postal trucks and what's walking with U.S. Postal carts are enemy combatants as far as I'm concerned, or they're rebels, based on the piece that I put up the other day with whatever was on that man's jacket. And that's really frightening. They're controlling my ability to receive mail and communication on another front, which could lead me into trouble if somebody's trying to communicate something with me. or some false sense of cooperativeship, depending on what I'm needed for. And I don't understand if that's the case. Again, it gets into dangerous territory. Especially being at the level of things the way that they are and how they're actually being acted upon.
Egalitarian. Every place, every person is treated equally, no matter if you're in the desert of Nevada or in the heart of
This is my nostalgia.
You can get the same service for the same price.
They will deliver a letter to every nook and cranny of this country.
They're the only entity that's capable of doing so. UPS and FedEx will deliver many of their packages to the Postal Service for what's known as the last mile delivery.
So imagine that even the companies cutting into the post office's business rely on what surveys have deemed to be America's most trusted government agency and America's most trusted brand overall.
The Postal Service.
Now, I don't know who makes those statistics up or what information they're running off of for reliable sourcing or sources, but I will tell you that based on what I can actually see in this particular neighborhood, it no longer looks like the friendly sort of when the agency was originally begun. And I don't know what were they just saying that the U.S. Post Office is the most whatever to prop it up? Well, that's great because I don't want it disappearing, but I also don't want it functioning in the manner for which it is currently functioning because it is an alternate to a reality that needs to be thought of.
This plays an integral part in the lives of Americans of every age and station.
With deliveries by horse, boat, train, bike, car, and plane, the Postal Service helped build this nation and created a bond with its citizens, dating all the way back to its creation in a 1792 law signed by President George Washington.
He wanted to make sure people shared the same information, that it was accurate, and that there was a common American culture, and that's really what the Postal Service was all about.
But Devin Leonard, author of Neither Snow Nor Rain, A History of the United States Postal Service, says the agency's best days are behind it.
Nobody really wants to have an adult conversation about what's happening with the Postal Service, and that is that people don't really need it like they used to.
Over the years, new innovations have chipped away at the Postal Service's business. The telegraph and later the telephone reduced the need for letters. Private shipping companies offered other options for sending goods, and the internet has made it easier to do just about everything.
People do have this great affection and nostalgia for the Postal Service, but if they're not using it, what?
So, telegraph was one way to direct around, but you could still at least have some form of verification of what you acted upon. This telephone is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, who's really going to call you that is ever important? In my life frame, it's been very few. And then you've got the internet, the most ridiculous waste of resource, and just increases this power struggle, like it post haste. I mean, in time dilation and avoiding like what needs to be done in a serious conversation, just like he said, nobody wants to have the conversation. I understand, but then what happens to the innocent didn't ask for this when everybody else is certainly pushing? They're making motions, they're making actions, they're making arguments, they're making cases, they're having temper tantrums, they're ruining people's lives, they're murdering people. I mean, this is a really dangerous event. And it's steadily getting worse. So at what point, where does the protection layer come in? I noticed also on one of the local currencies, the last time I went to Chase Bank, they had in my local area, they had a purple stripe on the $100 bill that they gave me. I have no idea what that even means. Again, there's no communication. And I can't ask the Postal Service workers because they're non-familial. So even like the local walkabouts are not even familial. And again, like it's trying to guess and patchwork in what these signs and symbols are that family members somewhere are working on, I would hope. But I don't know if they get lost in some sniveling cause. Gets really confusing based on the fact that my situation keeps getting more dire and I keep getting more hurt, even though my intentions are good. And my intentions are altruistic by nature and concerned by what is going on around me in real action and motion of how demographics drift and how people are pursuing actions that cause power grabs and power shifts in the most dangerous ways that other people might not even know that system exists, causing even more fighting in the most quiet and like easy to aggravate, hard to earn loyalty with. Yeah, and the title over here is Handle with Care for the Conversation in This Modern World. It's star 1978, it's star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxies, Broken. And it's like, I mean, never in my life have I met a human that I'm aware of. I don't get to meet the type of people who are like at your service. Not something that is readily available in my life frame. Maybe once upon a incident, a coined incident for coincidence of something that I stepped into, but to my recollection, what I'm actually able to recall upon, perhaps it happened once, which would be a lot within my life frame for at your service conversations.